want to look at the metrics on. So if the dimension is country, we can see from US, we got 27,000 users, the bounce rate was 42.79%, and the revenue from US was 115,000. For UK, for Canada, the same way. So the dimensions of the countries, and dimensions, what else could they be? So the dimensions could be language, so we could have English, Estonian, German, look at the numbers, metrics based on that. They could be people's age, so we can have different age groups and look at the metrics based on that. So how many people, how many users in the age group of 22 to 30 were on the website, what was the conversion rate, and so on. They could also be sort of returning users and new users. We want to compare, for example, how much revenue did we get from people who hadn't been to our site before versus the people who came to our site before. So we choose the dimension of user type, which is new or returning, and then we see all the metrics based on those data dimensions. And we can dissect the data further. Most of the tables, we have the primary dimension, but we can add a secondary dimension. So for example, I want to know desktop versus mobile in the US. I know they're probably different. So I add a secondary dimension to the data of device category. Now it basically takes the US and splits the US data into three. To desktop data, the visits that came from desktop, came from mobile, and came from tablet. And now I can see all the data separately. So in the previous slide, all the devices were under one row. I add secondary dimension, it sort of puts that apart. Now I have different device categories separately. Again, if I'm trying to analyze how is my online store working, for example, it's important to see, so in this case we can see that desktop, people from desktop are much more engaged on the site and the bounce rate is much lower. And the transactions are mainly from desktop as well. So again, you can get quite detailed in main dimension. We can make decisions based on the country, but again, if we add other dimensions, it helps us to get much deeper into the data, what is actually working. So maybe in the US, most of the sales were coming from desktop and not in mobile and tablet. So it actually makes sense if you do Facebook campaigns in the US, not show it to everybody, but really target them only to the desktop users, which we can see that are converting much better, and the possibility of a sale from there is much higher. Okay, and let's look at some live reports as well. So I'll open up Google Analytics. So it's the same account that you have access to as well from what I shared. So I'll quickly go over all the different types of reports and show and try to answer some of the questions that might get. So firstly, the date. So in this case, 2016, we don't really care about 2016. Let's first change that to this year. Let's do 1st of February 2020. Nope. Yep. We select the date, and now we have this year's February in front of us. We can see that in February this year, this online store had 48,124 users visiting, who on average visited 4.26 subpages, and they stayed on the website for 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And the bounce rate was 46.63%, which would be okay if it was a service company, but for online store it should be a little bit higher. So more in the 25-30% bounce rate for online store, it would be better. So the reports from the left hand. So the first, which we didn't talk about before, but which should probably not really use daily either, is a real-time report. So it shows in real time how many visitors are currently on the website, what pages they're looking for, and where are they from. So we can see that right now there's 115 visitors on the website. 94% are from mobile, 6% from desktop, and 1% from tablet. And they are mainly from India right now. And they're looking, we can see some of the most active pages: homepage, men's t-shirts, YouTube t-shirts. The website that this data comes from is actually Google's own merchandise store, where they sell Google branded t-shirts, YouTube branded t-shirts, and pens and so on. So it gives live data. When we do analysis of our campaigns, it's mainly when we want to see if something is working. So if we set up a new campaign, we test the links to see if the data comes in correctly, or if we set up a new website and it's a new Google Analytics account, we would look at the real-time reports to understand whether data is properly coming in. Or also when we set up new conversions, we want to see that if the setup was done correctly. So secondly, we have the audience report. From here, let's look at the demographic data, for example. I want to know the gender and age profile of my website. So when I set up my Facebook campaigns, in Facebook campaigns you can target specific genders or age groups. You can change the messages based on that. I want to know who are the most engaged people on my site, so I know to take that into account in my Facebook account. So I have a demographics report. I can take the overview report, which gives me sort of very broadly the split of male versus female and also the age group. So I can see that almost 40% of my visitors are from the age group of 25 to 34. Almost 60% of the visitors are male. And if I look at, I can dig deeper into the let's take the age report, for example. I can also see then, based on the age group of the revenue data and e-commerce conversion rate data, wherever that's possible. Not all data is available everywhere. It really depends on what kind of permissions people give to the website and what is possible to be collected. So here again, we talked about dimensions. In this case, the data dimension is age, and the metrics are, in this case, users, new users, sessions, bounce rates, so on, to transactions, revenue, and e-commerce conversion rate as well. So I look at one more report from here. So let's look at interest report. And interest, there's different reports. There's affinity categories, which is sort of what people are more interested in. And what I open now is in-market segment. It's basically Google sees all the data, what we're searching for, what websites we're visiting, and it tries to estimate what we're currently looking for. So in this case, we can see that most visits came from people in the in-market segment of employment, which by Google's estimates, these are people who are currently looking for a job. Secondly, people who are looking for staff and recruitment services, advertising, marketing services, there's investment services. So the people are actively shopping for these services besides from visiting these websites. So it gives you an insight into what kind of people are getting to your website, not only based on what they do on your website and what subpages they look at, but there's sort of more broader activity online, whatever Google has collected and can show us. So acquisition report. So this gives us an overview of where did the people reach the website. So we can see in this case, again, our periods. So now we can see that for some reason the date changed. So all the data underneath is 27th March to 2nd of April. So let's change back to the February that we had initially. In February, we can see that 58% of the people to the website came from organic search, which means that they were Googling something. So they could have Googled YouTube t-shirt or Google t-shirt or Google branded pens, and they reached the website. Then second position, so 16.4% of people came direct, which means that they either had the website bookmarked on the browser or they entered the domain directly to the browser. So they already knew about the website, they came directly. In the third position is referral, which means that some other website had a link to this website. Social, it could be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Affiliates, so if there's companies who are sending warm leads to you, you can track your affiliate partners, affiliate marketers who are doing some marketing for you. Paid search is Google AdWords, Google Ads. Display is banner advertising. And again, in the acquisition report, you can see all the sort of metrics based on the source dimension. So how many users from each type of channel came, what was the quality, so what was the bounce rate, how many pages they looked at, and also how many transactions came